Hello, everyone. I am Susan. Welcome to our Teaching for Learning book review. Our group is me, Susan Jesse, Roxy Robbins, Joyce Stickma, and Stella Petronell. Our book, Teaching for Learning, 101 Intentionally Designed Educational Activities to Put Students on the Path to Success. In this book, they go over 8 core teaching approaches that have strong research that support and demonstrate consistent success in higher education settings. The 8 approaches are lecture method, discussion method, reciprocal peer teaching, academic games, reading strategies, writing to learn, graphic organizers, and metacognitive reflection. For each approach, they list the essential features and elements, outline their purposes, list the advantages and disadvantages, and then give a summary of existing data on how to effectively employ that approach. So basically, for each and every method or approach, they give you a description. They tell you what you need to prepare to implement that approach. They give you pro tips for in-person classes and online classes, synchronous and asynchronous classes. They even give you examples of apps and programs that you can use to help make the magic happen. In each approach, there are also intentionally designed educational activities that correlate to research findings also listed in the chapter. So everything is totally researched to give you ideas. So those would be your different activities that you can use to implement each approach. The 2 that I did are lecture method and the discussion method. In the lecture method, why do we lecture? We lecture often because that's how we were taught. The problems with lecturing is for the first 10 minutes, you have about 70% retention rate. For the whole rest of the lecture, we've got about 10% retention rate. So how do we make that attention span and retention rate go up? Research says that if you give even a 1 to 3 minute pause after 20 minutes of lecture, you can actually reset that timing of retention and understanding. So get their attention back by just giving them a 1 to 3 minute pause. Other things with your slides, visuals are more effective than text. However, if you do use text, the 24-point sans serif is more effective, or the most effective for retention. Quizzes are also help with learning. In lecture, why do we lecture? Went over that, sorry. In lecture, the one that I was most interested in was the wake-up call. This is where you randomly call on students to answer questions during a lecture. How would you know who to call on for that question? I play cards with my family a lot. One of the ideas is you can hand out cards to each and every student. You have the same corresponding cards in your hand. So I chose 2s, 4s, 7s, and 9s for all the students. If you give a lecture, then you randomly think about, what are we doing? So we've got a 7 of clubs. 7 of clubs. In the discussion that we just had about red flags, what constitutes a red flag in postpartum? For example, in the postpartum environment. A con to the picking on people randomly is some people are super anxious about that. So phone a friend. If you have the 7 of clubs, what constitutes a red flag? If they say, give you that look, you can say, do you need to phone a friend? Any other 7s? Do you have any ideas on what constitutes a red flag? You could say clubs, any clubs. How else could you use your cards? For breakout sessions, you could say, all the clubs go here, all the hearts go here, all the spades go here. 7s, you're going to break out. 9s, you're going to break out. 7s and 9s go to one group. So I can just see lots of ways that you could use the cards. You could use them for definitely doing the wake-up call, waking up people and asking random questions, using it for phone a friend. I just love the whole card activity. The other approach is the discussion method. So our purpose for lecture was to convey information, right? Expert to the students, you convey the information you're trying to get across. The discussion method is how to apply and integrate that same information. So that also gives an added benefit of helping students to pay attention more and more effectively. Book lays out a lot of different types of discussion questions, as well as examples of each. For example, the hypothetical question. That's where you change a fact or an issue in whatever your scenario was, and how does that change things. In discussing our red flag scenario, what would happen if we changed the birthing person's attitude or the environment? How would that change our outcome that we discussed earlier? So those would be like your hypothetical questions. I found that helpful because sometimes they would talk about a different type of question to ask in an open discussion, and I'd be like, how would that apply? They'd give you an example, and I'm like, got it. They also give you examples for possible challenges, such as what would happen if you asked a question and no one responds. So they give you ideas on how to brainstorm and figure out those, problem solve those situations. The discussion method approach that I found interesting was the observation team discussion. So this allows students to leave the classroom and observe an environment, then come back with what they have learned. How I would implement that is show pictures of example, a postpartum intake home environment or kitchen. What is this kitchen telling us? What is this home environment telling us? Then show what it looks like postpartum. What is that telling us? Do you see any red flags? Are there any areas we could make easier? Are there things that you see that you could help with? All the questions just from observing two different pictures and different scenarios. Honestly, I absolutely love this book. I love everything about this book, and I think it would be super helpful for anyone who is teaching any type of a class. Next up in our group is Roxy Robbins. I hope you have an amazing day.